nice to see people in the gallery. I appreciate, and the rest of the council appreciate your attendance, and it's slightly light agenda, but hopefully an interesting agenda for you that are in attendance. So, we'll call the meeting to order, and the first item is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to this agenda? The only one that I would question, I was surprised the walking trails aren't on here. I thought you had wanted a little, some more information on walking trails, or more?
I thought we just left it for each municipal.
Yeah. So you're okay with no action at this point on it?
I didn't expect to come onto this agenda.
Okay, all right. No problem then. So are there any additions? Yes, Councilor Panet?
I was just gonna move to
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor? Agenda is carried. Scheduled delegations. Are there any scheduled delegations here? No, no scheduled delegations. Then public delegations. Are there any public delegations? Anyone from the gallery? Mr. Angelo, could you come forward and state your name?
Sure.
And the
am I the only one, or is there someone else who?
I believe at this time we only have one.
I can say something.
You go ahead. No. So I'm here representing the High Prairie District Sports Complex Society.
Angelo Murphy.
Okay, so Kelly might want to jump in here because I've had some talks with him about this. As you know, our nonprofit is building a skate park in the community with the help of the town and the MD and lots of community support. We are spending almost $450,000 on the skate park. And as part of that, the federal government has told us that we will need to ante up $23,000 of GST as part of our skate park costs. We don't feel right about $23,000 of money that we raised through fundraising and coming and talking to the town and the MD and the corporate sponsors that we have in town, and handing off $23,000 of that to the federal government. It just doesn't sit right with us. We saw that in the past the town has helped other, well actually this society in the past with the building of the Gordon Buchanan Arena. All the finances were put through the town in order to save the GST for that rec facility. So we would like to do the same, and we're asking the town if we can just basically put the finances through the town. The invoices would come to the town would pay them, and the $23,000 will stay in our community rather than go into the federal government's coffers, because the town doesn't pay GST. So that's sort of, I guess, the main point of the presentation tonight. We're looking for that assistance from the town. We would still like to continue on managing the construction of the skate park. As you guys have probably seen by driving by there, it's probably more than half done now. There's lots of kids in town who are very excited about getting on there with their bikes and skateboards and rollerblades, and they just can't wait. So it's just, I guess, trying to put the finances through the town so we don't have that GST issue. Came and talked to Kelly about it, I think on June 2nd, was it, Kelly? Yeah. And so we've already had to pay $2,500 of GST. We found out we can only apply to get half of whatever GST we pay back as a nonprofit. It doesn't really help us to get half of our GST back in January 2015, 6 months after the park is done. We're hoping that there'll be other interested parties who will take over the Sports Complex Society board, and there's some talk on Facebook about people who want a water park and a mini golf course and stuff like that. So that's what the Sports Complex Society was originally formed for, was to build some of these community rec facilities, and so we would anticipate maybe a new board being in place by the new year, and new goals and new ideas. So so that's kind of, I guess, what I want to talk about tonight. We feel that we have our finances in place. The sort of unknown number is the work in kind that's been donated, and the services in kind that are still being donated to this day on the park. So that's sort of that figure you see at the very bottom, that $37,850.
Okay, Mr. Tamako, did you say you might have something to add on this?
Yeah, Angelo and I have met a couple of times on this, and the skateboard project has been very dear to the town, and I know council has been very supportive of it. I think where we part a little bit in terms of this whole thing is the financial and some implications, statements coming from the treasurer. And I'm not too sure what it is. We did discuss them in terms of the fact that we don't want any liability to the town, unforeseen liability to the town, taking up the project midstream. So what I think we should do is the treasurer is on holidays. He should be back in 2 weeks' time. Have him prepare some information for council and present it to council, so council can have all the information, and based on what Angelo has given to us, be able to make some informed decision on behalf of the town and on behalf of the Angelo's group as well, having a more balanced information.
Does the town get 100% of their GST back?
Yes.
100%. Questions? Councillor Panasic?
Angelo, I know you're, I guess, number one, when is the skateboard park gonna be ready or finished?
We asked for August 15th, so hopefully, I mean, it looks like they're ahead of schedule. They're just going 110% there every day, so it looks really promising that that's what we felt would be the date.
So if that's the date, when were you gonna have to pay your invoices?
We have invoices coming all the time, and there's one we have to pay by the end of July, and it would be over $6,000 hit of GST, and we really would like to keep that money in the community and not send it to Ottawa. So we've already had to pay $2,500 of GST, and it just, like I said, it just doesn't sit right with us. We've had such good support from the community and the corporate sector in the community and the business community, and it just doesn't seem right to be sending all that GST money out. So, and the town has been a great benefit to us through this whole thing, and you guys have been very supportive, and I know we're asking you for another favor, but it would really help us out for that part, because it just, it doesn't sit right with us, basically. I did meet with Kelly and Herb about 3 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah.
And Herb presented some options to us about how we might do it, not having the town run the finances through, and those options just didn't seem acceptable. Took it back to our board, and our board said no, they just didn't seem acceptable. It involved a lot of running around and legwork, and we're up to our eyeballs right now as it is, but, one of the options, that he presented was that we would apply for half our GST back and then ask the town for a quarter of it and the MD for a quarter of it, and we just don't wanna have to go back and ask for more money, so, we prefer that this run through the town and we'll still manage the project and just basically turn over all the funds to you and.
Counselor Rose?
The $37,000 that's still required, is that with or without the GST?
That is, I believe, without the GST.
Cause you got it in as a plus and a minus, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we took the GST off because we were hopeful that the town would take this, take it and run it through their books, so to speak, like with the Gordon Buchanan Arena, so, yeah. The GST is just a real, it's just a thorn in our side.
In order for us to take on the responsibility of paying the GST, we probably have to sign the contract. Would we not have to, like, is it?
Yes,
Who's
yeah.
your contract with?
New Line Skate Parks Incorporated.
You guys have a contract signed with them now?
Yes.
So they have to develop a new contract?
We have an interim contract because we told them we were talking to the town about this very thing back in June, so it's, I mean, it's kinda getting to the point where we need to sort of move on something, right?
So you guys are prepared, if the town was to take on the signing of the contract and the paying of the GST, you guys are prepared to be project manager, still complete the project even though there's a deficit in funds?
Yeah, cause I think that was one of Herb's concerns, right, Kelly? About, cause I think he said that, you know, protocol for you guys is that you have to hire out to get a project manager and stuff, and he said, no, like, let's just keep it simple and we'll, cause we've been just being the project manager so far, so.
I'd just like to add, and I talked about it last meeting, that I think that going forward, we should really consider having a policy, bylaw, something in place that we can deal with these nonprofit organizations that are, the Sports Complex Society is gonna continue to fundraise for different projects. They're probably gonna put the next project on town land. We should have a policy in place where we actually right at the start, take the funds over, sign the contracts, and then we would avoid problems like we've had with the Gordon Buchanan Center, where we don't know about the electrical, or we don't know about some part of the process. We'd be part of the contract.
Okay, so the recommendation, I believe, is to wait until, which will be the next council meeting, that's July the 23rd. Would you be able to wait that long on paying invoices?
Well, I think we don't have a choice, right? So I guess the answer is yes. We have to have this invoice paid by July 27th, this next one,
It's
so.
back on the 22nd of Tuesday,
So the 23rd, you'd be making the decision, is that correct? Okay. And I'll just say, if any of you need any more info, just please contact me and I can give you whatever information you need. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, so.
Mr. Tomaco has just said he would not be able to provide the information, but he's already talked with you. He should be able to put something together for our meeting.
The treasurer is coming in on the 22nd, and we do need his input so that council is very clear on taking a project halfway, so there's no real impact to the ratepayer.
So he'd have 2 days to put it together. Would that be enough, do you
I
feel?
think the following regular council meeting might work better for.
Well, we need to make this decision in July.
Yeah, that, unfortunately, Kelly, that wouldn't work well for us, just because we'd be sending another 6,000 away to Ottawa, so. Like, the good news is that Herb has already heard this request on June 2nd, he's already looked at everything, he's offered us some alternatives, and we basically, we're coming here tonight to say no to his alternatives, and, you know, sort of thanks, but no thanks. We would like to put it through the town, so that, like, that's kind of where we're at as an organization. It would, that's what would help us out the most. I've talked to some of the businesses that have donated money, and they have told me that it does not sit well with them that we'd be sending away 23,000 of GST. And I can totally understand that, so that's kind of why we're looking at this.
Okay, so I really feel that he should have the background, yes?
Question about
Councillor Rose?
the GST, because you were involved in the sports complex society, or in the arena as well?
No.
No? So does anybody know the answer to the GST on the Gordon Cannon Center?
It went through the town, so the
And
town
all of
had-
it went through the town? We ended up signing a contract, or what, we just piecemealed it, or paid it as?
Piecemealed it out, because we had project managers, Cliff Calvert, Wayne Forrester, Lindsay Pratt, I believe, were the 3 project managers. Councillor Enter?
So at the moment, you're short about $60,000, assuming you have to pay the GST.
If we do have to pay the GST, yeah.
And if the town can somehow take this on board, you're short $38,000.
Yeah, but that doesn't take into account the donations of work and services in kind that we've received and are still receiving right now, so we're,
Is that
we
a
feel
matching
that.
grant?
What's that?
Is that a matching grant kind of thing?
Is the donations and services in kind?
Yeah.
No, those are just what the business community is, doing as far as, doing work on the site and whatnot and donating equipment. And so far, to this point, somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000, that we've received, but we can't put an accurate figure on it right now, so it's kind of a tough question to answer.
Okay. Funds earned in May 2014. 6 and 9,
Yep.
and you're depositing 14, so 1,000 of the funds raised were spent already. Is that what that says?
We are actually receiving a check tomorrow from Florida Canada for the 6,000.
Mhm.
We've already deposited the kick flipping for the community funds, so that day we made about 14,000.
Okay, because I was just doing the math on it, and 6 and 9, 15, not 14, so I was trying to.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So I didn't know if it was an 8 or if it was a 15.
So we're in even better position.
Hey, you saved $1,000 right there.
So change that one figure to 36,805.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's basically the request. I know I've taken up a lot of your time. I don't know if anyone has any more questions, but like I said, we're trying to be very transparent, and if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact me and I'll do my best to answer them.
All right then, so,
Make a motion to postpone.
until when?
Well, we can postpone it for 2 weeks and see what happens.
So postponed until the July
July 23rd.
23rd meeting.
You can't make motions out of public delegation.
And then we have to wait till he's done and then.
Once you accept it for delegation, and then,
You can make motions with public delegations, you can refer the matter to administration.
all right, so I need a motion then to accept the, delegate, the information from the state board for information.
No, we don't need a motion.
Don't need a motion.
You don't need a motion to accept it, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time
We
tonight.
appreciate that.
Muchly appreciated.
We need a motion to direct Council Thursday to return.
You can refer the matter to administration.
For the July 23rd meeting,
Yes.
yeah, okay?
I'll
so-
make that motion.
The motion to refer the, GST concern of the Ave Prairie Sports Complex Society to the July 23rd council meeting as an agenda.
Yeah.
So would that be a notice of motion, Kelly?
The procedure bylaw is very clear, you can make reference, refer it to administration, and for administration to investigate the matter. That's what the procedure bylaw says.
But we can refer it to administration, but we can also ask for it to be put on the agenda. Correct?
make an RFP and have it in before 1 o'clock next Wednesday, so that it is on the next agenda.
That'd be better for you, Kelly?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just want to make sure that we're clear about what the procedure by law says. 31.8, where delegation requests support from council requiring a motion of council. Council shall first refer the matter to administration, who shall bring back more information and a recommendation at a subsequent meeting so that council can make an informed decision.
So you'll present RFD then?
Yeah, just to refer to administration for the next meeting.
Can I see that second?
So, could you read it back?
To refer the matter.
Is it a motion?
Yes, to
It
refer
is.
to administration for more information for the next meeting.
Is that,
That should do it. Because it's gonna come to us in the form of an RFD, correct?
Yeah.
Can you read back the question, please?
I'm still creating it.
Sorry. And then I didn't look over. Did you
Oh,
look?
no, I was making fun of him, sorry.
Well, it's always fun to do. Thanks. I owe you a steak. They did make fun of me.
Moving on.
read it?
So moved by Councillor Long to refer the High Prairie and District Sports Complex Society request to the town, request that the town of High Prairie assisting in assuming the skateboard park financials so that any further purchases become GST exempt to administration.
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. So we'll check, it'll be on the agenda then for the next meeting,
Yeah, but the next meeting is what?
July 23rd.
July 23rd. The treasurer is coming in 22nd. The agenda item go out on the 18th.
Correct?
The agenda will come to you on the 18th. The treasurer is coming on the 22nd.
Okay, so you can, well, I guess you can put some of the backup and he can bring us more. You said you were assuming the treasurer's duties, well, he was gone. All right, the next item of business, are there any other public delegations? Any other public delegations?
Bye. Go for it.
You're actually on the agenda, Ms. Fidali. So at that time, I'm going to ask you to come forward to speak to it, a little bit, okay.
Unscheduled?
No, it's a scheduled,
No, I mean, are you calling for unscheduled?
I'm calling for unscheduled. Can you come?
Just please speak up.
Right.
It's really hard to, for an old timer like me to hear you. Second motion.
All right, I agree.
Oh, okay. You know, I've only been here 10 minutes, you know, and it keeps getting quieter and quieter and quieter.
So we would
I hope
ask
it isn't
everyone
me.
to please speak up. We don't have microphones and hopefully we will be getting some this year, hopefully. So we will attempt to speak up more and not sound like we're yelling, so. All right, are there any other public delegations? And that was not a public delegation, that was just a comment. Are there any other public delegations? No. Then we will move on now. The next item of business is the minutes, the regular meeting of council minutes. Are there any errors? Councillor Emter?
Make a motion that council approve the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on June 25th, 2014 as presented.
Any errors or omissions? Councillor Carrier?
Motion 43814 says moved by Deputy Mayor Panasic. You can change it to Councillor.
What page?
That's on page 5, or page 2 of 8 on here, but page 5 of the agenda.
Okay. And that is on the lift station number 4 tender award.
Correct.
So do you have that correction?
Yep.
So do you want to amend your motion then, Councillor Emter, to adopt the minutes as amended?
Are we done with amendments?
Are we done with amendments? I believe so. No one else had
Okay.
any? So his motion then will be
As
adopt
amended.
minutes as amended. All in favor? Carried. Next item of business is the, finance. There being no business arising, public hearing or new business, so the new wage grid. Could I have a motion then? Councillor Carrier?
I make a motion that council approve the proposed wage grid option 2 as presented.
Option 2. Discussion? Councillor Panasic? Comments?
Yeah, I had a few things, like, one of my questions was for Kelly, is this, the 2014 grid that's shown here, is this with the increase from the previous grid, the 2012-13 grid that was used before? Or was this the old one?
With an increase, yes.
So this is showing an increase already?
The 2% increase.
Yeah.
Yes, with the COLA, yes.
Okay, this is only COLA.
Yeah, no, not with the increase that you have approved. No.
No,
The increase.
this says the 2% COLA,
Exactly, and the increase that you approved is triggering the proposed grid.
and that was the proposed grid option
Yes.
1, is what we had, at the time, I'm saying basically for.
What you did approve was $50,000 for the 2014 year. Yeah, for 2014. So once you approve that, that would trigger a change in the salary grid, because going forward, the grid will change. So now you have a 2014 proposed grid. It's not been implemented since January, because we did approve it for the budget, but until the salary grid is approved, we cannot implement it.
So I guess my question is, why have we been waiting on this for so long?
Because the budget had to pass first.
But that passed a while ago.
Yes, exactly, and then we had to work out some different scenarios with senior management that created option 2.
Okay.
So what I can do for you is maybe to make things a little simpler. If you go after the option 2, you'll see the original grid that was presented to you in January, right? January 8th, after option 2. You see that? Presented at January 8, 2014 council meeting, okay? So the budget has not been passed, okay? So when the budget was passed, there was $50,000 that was passed for the changes to be made. So that triggered us to bring to you both option 1 and option 2. Now, option 1 is very close to the original that was presented on January the 8th. The only difference is that we wanted to make sure that the mechanic and the utility person were at par, because of the fact that the functions of what senior management or public works saw was that there was no need to have a discrepancy between those two salaries. So the one for the mechanic and the public works there, and the one under utility supervisor the salary is the same. There was about a $4,000 difference, but now it's the same. Okay, that's for option 1. That is the only difference from the January 8th presentation. Option 2 has 4 changes. One, the change to do with the mechanic and the utility supervisor, right, which we merged. And then the one for the senior community peace officer, which is now $76,000, and the one for the community peace officer, the non-senior, for $74,000, based on the information that we got from the and I think it's part of your document that we presented to you from the Alberta Association of Community Peace Officers. So there's about a $2,000 difference in increment. The fourth change is the one for the manager roles and facilities that went up from 80,642 to 84,000. Technically, by the proposed grid, his salary had dropped. And so looking at his functions, we moved it from the 80,642 to 84,000. And the reason why I thought we could make those kinds of adjustments, given the fact that there was still an inequity within the salary group, and this would be more equal without giving out too much money, is one, the CAO salary is not being adjusted. Okay, there's a 20% variance between the current CEO salary and the P50. But we all agree that I made a statement that I should not be considered for any salary adjustment. So I'm not part of this grid.
And that's because you're on contract.
I could make a request and you could turn it down. But I told you in advance that I'm not interested in any adjustment. So that expense is not there, right? Secondly, we haven't made any adjustments since January. We're talking about July. So we still have some room from what was approved to be able to make these inequities more equal. The 50,000 was supposed to kick in January. We are now in July. So the application of we're going to spend much less than what you had approved. That's the rationale behind some of these
So it
things.
won't be backdated?
No, we are not going back. No, just to reassure you, we're not going back.
Any other questions? Councillor Enter?
Mr. Tanako, who is the consulting firm we hired to review our salary grid?
That's Michael Lim.
Michael Lynn?
Yes.
Okay, and how much did we pay this firm?
Michael, I believe, I can't.
Roughly.
I can look into it and get back to you.
Like what, 20,000?
No, not 20,000. More than 10,000, but not 20,000.
Between 10 and 15 then?
Could be.
Okay.
Yes, could be.
So we hired a consulting firm, we paid them $10,000 to $15,000 to review the salary grids or wage grid. And then we took that grid, which was approved by council, and now we're finding there's some errors in the grid or some imperfections.
No,
No?
that's not a statement.
We're not making any adjustments?
No.
But you're telling me that the manager of roads took a pay cut, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're adjusting the peace officers according to peace officers in this area, which is good research, and I like this. This is good, and I'm just trying to point out there's some inconsistencies in hiring a firm that specializes in this, and then we take it, we review it, and we find that maybe the work quality wasn't there.
No, I don't think that's the statement. 98% of the work that was done is something that is superb. But in any research that is done, we have to look at the local inequities. So as a CEO, when I look at some of the functions, there are just variance of $1,000, $2,000 there. That in itself sometimes creates some big issues. That's one of the reasons for the delay. And I knew that if I could find a way to resolve it, it would bring about a much more congruent approach to the salary grid. So the changes that have been done are not too far away from what the consultant has done. The consultant did a lot of work, 98%. But if you look at the Peace Officers Association, for example, there's a $2,000 difference between the senior peace officer and the. So if I make that reflection, it just brings about a little bit more consistency in the mind of the senior peace officer. That okay, the salary grid now matches what my organization out there is paying for the other peace officers. It just creates a little bit more equity. It does not undermine the research and the work of the consultant at all.
Well, I would disagree because the consultant used local municipalities, MD Big Lake, Slave Lake, I think Bellevue, Fairview, Peace River. There was a list of about 20, I think, that were consulted. And I think that those positions would have been reviewed, including police officers. Maybe he made an error. Don't know. That was just a question.
What I presented you with, if you may, Madam Chair, I presented you with two options. And it's at your prerogative that you can decide which option to take. Option one is match what the consultant gave to us, except for the fact that we made the mechanic and the utility salary grade equal to alleviate any kind of conflict from where we're coming from. So option one is the much closer option for you, has very little variance. Option two is the one that we did a little bit of work on. So if in your estimate you feel that option one meets your expectations, or that's what needs to be done, I think that's within your purview to decide exactly what you want to do.
Any other questions? Councilor Carrier?
Going forward with option 2 for next year, with the changes, would it be more money spent next year in wages? Or are we still within what we had approved prior?
I mean, it's within what is being done this year, right? Because when you make that increase, then the salary moves forward. It just keeps moving forward. And the way it works is based on the review of performance as per the policy. So if employee A's salary needs to be increased, they'll be increased based on the proposed salary, one step forward.
Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Councilor Rose?
One comment about, so we're talking about this study, right, the compensation survey?
Yes.
Because what they actually gave us on peace officers is very close to proposed grid 2. Like, I don't know why the salary. Were we looking at P50?
Yes, P50.
Yeah, I was looking at the averages.
Yeah, P50.
Because the numbers that they provided us in this survey were the averages for peace officer wages, not P50. So I mean, it's marginal. So I mean, they provided it, but we dealt with the P50, which is why I think there's that difference. But I know, I hear you.
Well, they're asking for an increase, I believe, from what he was saying, that the wage grid is a higher wage grid than what was originally in the January 8th budget, or in the January 8th presentation. There is higher figures in it.
Yes.
Okay. So, since there's higher figures in it, that will cost, there will be an increase in cost in salaries across the board, because you're slotting people into a higher wage grid. I'm concerned that when we budgeted our approval, we knew already what the salaries were, and we took that into account. And now we will need to put more money into the salaries, into the wage grid, into the salaries of the town's employees. Where is that money coming from?
Madam Chair, the amount of money that was approved was 50,000. The variance for the CAO salary is 20%, which is about, of the 50,000, that's close to anywhere between $10,000–15,000. which I am not part of.
You weren't part of
But
it.
the 50,000 was approved by council, so it's part of the budget already. So we're not extending ourselves over that.
The discussion on January 8th was that you would not be part of the 50,000 anyways. So whether you were part of it in January 8th or whether you were part of it now, you weren't part of it anyways. It was always, you were only talking about an increase in employee, in the staffing of the town. So although you're saying I could have asked for an increase, in January 8th in that discussion, you had already said, no, my figure is not part of this. So it's still not part of it, is what I'm saying. And I guess what I'm thinking is, if we go with this, where is the money coming from? Is it coming from our substantial surplus that is referred to often, that we are in a very good position, et cetera, except when it comes to capital, and then we're not in a good position. But I guess what I wanna say is, if we go with this, I think that we have some vacant positions that if we don't fill the vacant positions that are in the town, then we would use that vacancy money to cover this. And then we would be coming out either ahead or close to even. That's my thoughts on it. If you want to go ahead with an increase in wages, then it should come from the salary. Councillor Rose?
Just wanted to kind of clear up, because my understanding of the $50,000 when we discussed it in January was that was the increase if everybody's wage was increased, including the CAOs. The $50,000 would be the total of the increase that we were presented. So if you extract that out of there and it's $15,000 out of it, then really the increase to the town, even though we approved 50, is only 35. So this increase now of a few $1,000s here or there is easily taken in the 50. Is that what everybody else understood? Because
I didn't understand that. I thought it was already done. Councillor Tanaka, do you have anything to say? Councillor Long?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Panasic?
No, I'm good.
Councillor Ector? Councillor Carrier?
No further questions.
All right, so do you have anything you wish to add?
No, thank you.
Could you read the motion back, please?
Moved by Councillor Carrier that council approve the proposed wage grid option 2 as presented.
All right, all in favor? I would like to make a motion regarding this wage grid that the town of High Prairie entered into a position freezing for the remainder of the 2014 year. That no further staff be hired for the remainder of the 2014 year. Councillor Long?
I guess we have to put that forward and vote on it first before we can discuss.
Yes, well, I have the motion.
Not vote, but just, the motion's been made.
The motion's been made.
So if it's, my only concern is that if we lose a single person on a position that's a singular position, for whatever reason, illness or whatever, then this motion presents a problem for us in not being able to fill that motion or that position based on the wording of this motion.
I could amend the motion that any hiring comes to council for approval.
Would that then create an issue of us putting hands in the cookie jar? It's a micromanagement sort of thing, and I think from a governance perspective, I'm not sure if we're able to do that.
I would say we were, because it is an oversight issue. Councillor Panasic and then Councillor Carey.
And it's just my opinion, I don't think that we can necessarily vote on this at this time. I think if anything, it should be a request for a decision to the next meeting so that we can have administration give them time to, come up with a statement of why this would work or it wouldn't work. To just spring it right now is not, doesn't give them any time to prepare an argument for or against, and I'd like to know a lot more before I made a decision.
Counselor Carrier?
Withdraw my question.
Counselor Enter?
I'm in lines with Councillor Panasek on this. I was going to ask Kelly what positions are actually vacant at the moment. I don't know, contrary to belief, I'm not that in touch with what's going on here. So I was gonna ask what's available or what is currently vacant, what would we be looking at, but I prefer actually, I like the idea, give 2 weeks, come back with the actual information of what's going on.
Okay, then in that case, I withdraw my motion and I will make a new motion that the, direct administration to bring an analysis forward of the implications of a hiring freeze for the remainder of the 2014 year.
Can I be helpful?
Yes?
I think the oversight and governance role is that you approve the salary grid. So we have a salary grid. We just hired Kelly Shally for development assistants. The only position on the salary grid that has not been filled is the economic development person. Everything else is out there approved by council. If council wants to change the salary grade, then that's an oversight responsibility. I think asking for salary freeze or hiring freeze, I think that's a little not strategic in terms of governance. You have the salary grid. Anytime you can take a look at your salary grid and decide whether you need these positions for what services. That is within the purview of governance. And so that's my only advice.
I think the motion would address what you're saying now, so you can bring that forward. Counselor Enter?
I much prefer the way you worded your last motion. And then, actually, I thought there was a posting either in last week's or the week before paper for an equipment operator 2. Has that been filled already?
And that's one of the things that is very important to know, that we are struggling with retaining staff, we are losing staff. It's getting a little bit more tougher to get staff. We have, and I thank you for passing the salary grade, because I know that there are some folks within public works that are thinking of making a move forward. This helps to alleviate that. So there are people coming in, people going out. So trying to control the employment of staff will really create an uneasiness among the staff.
Any other questions? Do you want to read the motion back, please?
Moved by Mayor Cox that council direct administration to bring an analysis of the implication of a hiring freeze for the remainder of the 2014 year to a regular meeting of council in the future.
Actually, I would like to change that to the July 23rd meeting of council. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item of business is the airport fuel. And this is an update on the MD's information gathering and the amount that was allocated for the fuel tanks at the airport. Did you want to add to this?
Just to help the mayor, we had approved 55,000 before, and the MD discussed with their folks, and they had increased the number of tanks from 1 to 2, so the cost doubled to $200,000. And so when we met at the intermediate part, the request was made of us if we could match them from the 55 to 40 plus 45. So we should be by $100,000, not more than $100,000.
Do you want to make a motion, someone, so we can discuss this further? Councilor Panasek?
I make the motion that council approve an additional amount not to exceed $45,000 to the 2 airport fuel tanks to be taken from the surplus capital reserve and to amend the 2014 budget accordingly.
All right, any questions on this? Councilor Enter?
Although I agreed with the first proposal, about putting a fuel tank out there. I don't understand why a second tank is required.
Through discussions with the Can West Corporate Air Charters Limited and local pilots, they have determined that there is a need for 2 different kinds of fuel tanks there. And that if we wish that airport to be operational and used to a fuller extent, we would need 2 kinds of fuels. Councillor Hampton?
So the 2 types of fuel, are we then talking like rotary wing and plane? So helicopter and plane?
I'm unsure.
Yes.
Councillor Panasic?
Yeah, the Jet B would be for rotary wing.
Any other questions? Councillor Tanaka?
We approved the first one, and from your consultations with them, do they figure that this extra tank will increase the amount of traffic there?
Yes. According to Can West, who runs the charters out of Slave Lake successfully, they looked at the operation and said, you would need 2 fuel tanks. You can't do with just the one. So, the MD has recommended it. They're looking at the total airport operation. Councillor
I was
Panasic?
just gonna comment, it's a little bit like having diesel and regular gas. You got the 2 different types of
Right.
engines, and you're sort of eliminating one type of aircraft if you don't have both there, so it just opens the door and probably would allow more, forestry, SRD to use that and tie into it.
Councillor Rose?
Have we got a proposal from the city yet on, potentially leasing or taking over sort of the operations of the airport?
No, but I did speak to a CEO, Bill Costu, and we want to make time because the MD has given him the direction to bring him to come and have a chat with the town. So he's going to call me and figure out what time is okay for us to have that discussion.
Councillor Rose?
So it's my understanding that they've approved already the 200,000. They've approved the 2 tanks. They're asking us for money, so we're not gonna hold up the going forward of the fuel tanks at this point by waiting to make a decision, potentially until we see what sort of arrangement that the MD wants to present to us as far as taking over the airport, because we've got fuel and an airport that we're dealing with right now, right? So we could consider seeing what sort of, there's a lot of issues with the airport and whether if the MD is gonna take that over, how we're gonna handle certain aspects of it. There's the SRD situation, there's the length of the lease.
But that's separate from the fuel tank issue.
Yes and no, maybe, because like I say, they've approved it. It's not like we're gonna hold up any sort of production at this point in time, right? Because they've given the go-ahead to Canwest. It's going forward. And they're asking us for money. I totally would love to see if we can afford to pay for this cost and it works out for the town in the best interest, then yes, let's go forward with it. But I don't think we have all the information on what going forward we wanna do, or what they wanna do with the airport, and maybe that plays into part of that. And it was just, I do see them as interconnected, and if they're already gonna have a conversation soon about the potential changing of the operation and the cost of that operation, maybe this can be part of that conversation.
Any other comments? Yes?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the treasurer did discuss with the same position that Councillor Rose is raising regarding the proposal to take over the airport. And he was of the opinion that why don't you wait to see what this transaction holds before you start going to the fuel issue. So just to let you know that other thoughts about what Councillor Rose has proposed.
So they've already, they're paying for these extra tanks
Yes.
already? Oh, okay, I'm not sure if I understood that. I thought that they weren't gonna go ahead unless we paid for our share of it.
In the discussions with the airport, council has given the go-ahead to the MD to handle the fuel tanks. This is the proposal that they have said, we're handling the fuel tanks, we're getting those fuel tanks in, and we're going ahead to make this thing viable. Whether they take over the operation of the airport is a separate issue. The fuel tanks have got, this is a 3-year, 4-year, this has been going on for as long as I can remember. And the MD has now moved it to the point where, yes, we're gonna get fuel tanks in there. So I don't think that putting this off is conducive to good relations with the MD. Councillor Danak.
I just have a question. Is there some way, if we can, if having 2 fuel tanks, if we can, instead of approving, saying, yes, we're gonna fund it, is there some way that we can say, okay, you've got the 2 fuel tanks, can we see if it causes any increase in what they're trying to do before we say, okay, I wanna see if this is gonna work before we give you the money?
Councillor Long, would you like to reply on that one?
Wow. I think that it's a good investment. It's essential for us to have that airport facility functioning so it's feasible. And it won't be feasible unless we have both tanks and both kinds of fuel. We've developed and are continuing to develop a good relationship with the MD, and I don't think it would be fair to them to say, we'll wait and see how well it does before we decide to jump in and join you. We're a partnership with the MD. We've got a good working relationship, and this is one of those intermunicipal things that we need to work on. I'm in favor of moving this forward. I think it is a separate issue from the overall operations side of it. This is to get it to where we need it to be, and then the nuts and bolts of actually who's going to run it, who's going to do this, and who's going to do that. That's a separate issue. But the point's moot if we don't have both fuel capacities there. If we only have the 1 tank and not 2 with the 2 types, then we won't get the traffic that we want to get. Sometimes you gotta spend money to make money.
Councillor Panasic.
I was just gonna comment on Donna's question, just regarding, this Can West presentation here, they made a comment. All of these systems need to be in place before attracting business. It cannot be done the other way around. So I think we're really going down a road of, it's not just fuel tanks, and I think we have to look at, they've listed the other things that need to be done in here, and there's the other stuff like, add the airport weather alerting system, runway reporting available 24 hours a day. And they had a few other things. Those are all gonna have to be implemented before we're gonna start to see, and it's not just the tanks, but that's one of the main ones. But it's all of those things before we're gonna have better traffic and maybe some air traffic in and out of air charter service, but they won't happen until some of that comes into play.
And before I go to you, Councillor Hampton, at the intermunicipal meeting, when we discussed the operation of the airport, the MD made it quite plain that if they identified deficiencies, they identified the fact that the building needs repair, they identified a lot of different items out there, and then they said, we're interested in operating this airport, but we want a 20 or 30-year agreement, and then we will put money into it. So they are wanting this airport to be a hub airport. This is moving us forward more than we would ever be able to afford to move forward. Councillor Hampton, and then Councillor Carrier. Councillor Carrier?
Just from the conversations, if the MD's already moved ahead and are willing to foot the full bill, they say, why not let them foot the full bill and save the town $45,000? If they're already willing to pay for it, and they're moving ahead, I know it might sound harsh, whatever, but if we can save the town $45,000, there's a savings of $45,000.
I think that the relations that we've built would be pretty strained if we reneged on our agreement that get fuel tanks out. And I believe part of this discussion, the backup information does show that Can West is a professional organization, and if they have come to the table and said, yes, we're interested in making this airport work. So, like I said, I'm in favor. Councillor Long, were you going to say anything more?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, and is there anything else that anybody wants to say regarding this? Could you read the motion back, please?
Moved by Councillor Panasic.
Yes, just hang on, did you want something to Councillor Fanatic?
I know we have a municipal agreement with the MD. I guess my question is, do we have to give them the 45,000? Like, because they requested 45,000, do we have to give them what they want? Or can we give them, show them that we're still interested, but
Not give them 45,000.
well, no, I'm just saying, like,
Yes,
can we say, okay, like, I mean, this is a lot of money for our little town, you guys have the money, can we give you 25,000?
So
I'm just asking.
Some negotiation.
And again, I know you were looking at, sorry, but again, that's sort of what I was just saying. You know, give them our support, and if that's truly what they need to go forward, then let them know that we support that, and we want to have the airport at its capacity, the full capacity, being able to be operational to the extent that they want it operational. But since we're gonna go into negotiations with them to make some sort of arrangement to take over the operations of the building, this could be part of the conversation, and it doesn't mean that it's not gonna go forward, because they've already approved it and they've already started the wheels in motion.
My own comment on that would be, if we're gonna negotiate, I think it behooves us to negotiate on the rest of the upgrades, because they are going to be major expenses. And at that point, I think we will have said, look, we put this money in for the fuel tanks. Now let's not be so, let's be more aggressive on negotiating for the rest of it, because they are looking at taking it over. I think that we would have good bargaining on that portion, not this portion. This portion we pretty well said, we want fuel tanks out there, get them in.
Except for
And
setting a
we-
precedent of 50% by saying yes.
Yes, that's true, 50% on a lot of other things. Councillor Long, and then I think we're finished on this.
I'm not sure if it sets a precedence. I think that we have the opportunity and the ability to negotiate through all of this, but we were a part of the initial discussion of let's get them in, let's get these tanks in, let's get it, at that time it was one tank. And so I do agree that it would give some bargaining power, a little bit of leverage to say, hey, look, we kicked up and ponied up when it was a little bit tight for us to do. And these other items, we need to negotiate a better rate. It's good faith, it's money well spent, I think.
Okay. All right, could you please read the motion back now?
Moved by Councillor Panasic that council approve an additional amount not to exceed $45,000 for the 2 airport fuel tanks to be taken from the surplus capital reserve and to amend the 2014 budget accordingly.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item of business is the Slavian Independence Cemetery, and with council's agreement, I would like to ask Ms. Fidali to come forward. She is the representative for the Slavian Cemetery. She's the grass cutter.
I'm here representing the Slavian Independent Cemetery, and from checking into the other cemeteries, the town is cutting them. We understand, and we would like to see if they would take on cutting our cemetery. It's out on the North Road by the MD office. Which
It's
is,
on the highway by
yes,
the MD.
it's in town limits.
Yes.
West Road.
Pardon me?
West Road, not
Yes.
north.
Oh, sorry, yes. I'm going to talk far.
When you cut that grass, about how long does it take?
It takes me a half an hour to run my tractor to the cemetery and an hour to cut it.
Okay.
Yeah, and from what I understand, I think Mr. Cleaver was cutting it last year. And nobody was cutting it this year, so Mr. Bella and myself, we really
Okay.
have been cutting.
Any other questions from Ms. Fidalgo? Councillor Wong?
Why isn't it included with the other cemeteries in the contracts we have? Is it just,
That's what we were wondering as well.
I think it was an oversight, Mr. Tomaco?
I'm not able to answer to this, that the contract was not with the
I think doing that at one time, it was part of the MD, and then the town annexed it,
Oh,
so that would have been several years ago, I think.
right, and then they would have just overlooked
Yeah,
that.
I think that's what happened.
Councillor Emmett?
But that was gonna be my question, I was wondering if it's still in the MD or not.
No, it's town limits.
And
Is it
map.
butted up against the property of the MD building?
Yeah.
Well, MD location.
Or the MD property,
Yeah.
sorry, there.
It's
Or the
part of
offices.
the West End Industrial Park. When you actually look at the boundaries of the West End Industrial Park.
I'm just wondering if the MD, when they're cutting their grass.
We already asked.
Okay. Councillor Panasa?
I'm curious who we have a contract with to do these other cemeteries. Who's the contract with that in the discussions, it says we have a contract for a total of $15,200 per year?
Mr. Tomaco?
Heart River Contracting,
Hat River contracting.
or maintenance contracts.
Stokes.
Heart River
Hat
maintenance.
River,
Yeah.
Stokes, that's it, sorry.
Okay, I was,
Yeah.
so we pay somebody to,
Yes.
it's not somebody paying us to cut the lawn. I thought it was the other way around. And I was like, oh, wow, then we'll cut it.
Costing us.
Yeah, I was thinking this is easy.
Question? Councillor Rose?
I just wonder what, maybe we should be looking at trying to add a few things to the intermunicipal agreement, because this is a town cemetery, but it's not just town residents that are buried here, right? It's MD residents as well. Sort of like the walking trails thing, we're starting to learn that there's a big parameter of things that that we're looking after. And we're slowly, like, if anything, maybe losing that space as people move out and build homes out into the MD, but we're looking after all these, sort of the infrastructure right from sewer systems to cemeteries. So maybe some of these items we should look, cause we're just entering into those conversations now with the MD. Maybe we can add some of these items. They're small, but maybe there's some
Before
opportunity.
we add, we should talk amongst ourselves first, rather than bring it to the MD. For instance, when you say that there are, there are MD residents buried in that cemetery. If you look around at the many, MD cemeteries, there's a lot of town people buried out there, and I'm really not sure if we want to get into looking after all of the MD cemeteries. So there might not be a road we want to get on. Councillor Long?
is there any way that we can contact our current provider? Summer's almost half over now, makes me sad. But maybe there's something that we can do to open up the contract so we can get it for 15 and 2016. Instead of waiting until 2016 to have this resolved, maybe we can bring in Mr. Stokes or whoever the contract provider is, or put an RFP out there and open it up for tender. But if he wants to incorporate this into the current contract,
Well, there's also the possibility that our town staff could do it. It's only an hour and a half max.
they're not doing the boulevards.
Well, they're not supposed to be doing the residential boulevards, but I'm not sure. Have they done anything with that bylaw?
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up.
No,
No, they haven't.
no. Nothing has been done with that.
So, we have, I mean, it's only an hour and a half at max, and I think that, like you said, summer's almost over.
Yeah.
I think they could incorporate that, or we should,
So if you're gonna ask them to cut the grass at this one, why not cut them at all of them,
only for this rest of this year.
and next year?
No, this goes to the 2015, so that'll be in November, and January 1st is 2015. So it would be part of the 2015 deliberations as to what do you wanna do then. the remainder of this year. Counselor Hunter?
I would agree asking administration to look after for the remainder of the year. It's 2 hours a week, hopefully.
How often are you cutting it?
Once every 2 weeks.
Better.
Even better.
And this is with that little tractor, a big one takes less time.
So, we have a motion.
No, we don't have a motion.
We didn't make a motion?
No.
Oh, well, would
We're out of
somebody like
order.
to make that motion?
It's out of order.
Counselor Carrier?
Make a motion that council forward the Slavian Independent Cemetery request to maintain the cemetery lawn to the 2015 budget deliberations, and to have direct administration to have a town employee cut the grass for the remainder of the 2015 season, 2014 season.
Any other comments?
Just a formality, in your motion, can you direct administration to direct our staff?
That's what he said.
I know, but is that allowed?
To direct administration.
I have, to direct administration to investigate mowing the Slavian Independent Cemetery for the rest of the 2014 year.
Investigate.
We can't direct staff to do things, but I can only direct administration, so.
To incorporate.
There's 12 hours left for the year.
No, it's
I
your
know.
role,
I
that's,
know.
it's no role,
Okay.
it's your role.
You wanna go with investigate? As long as it gets done?
Can't let anybody.
That's my hope, but I guess if that's the best word to use for what we're allowed to do,
Correct.
that'll be my motion.
If we can't do it, we'll let you know. Yeah, we will, we will, I mean, that's our role, we'll let you know. If we can do it, we'll let you
Councilor
know.
Long?
What are some of the rationalizations or issues that you feel that you wouldn't be able to?
I won't know until I speak to the folks out there. We're already struggling with the streets, we're struggling with so many things. So let me investigate and get back to you as to what we can do and what we can't do.
Counselor Long?
And would there be an opportunity for our CEO to talk to our current contractor and see if he would be willing to take that on as well as the other ones that he's doing as part of that investigation?
It's part of the investigation. When we ask administration to investigate, then we look at all the options. They're all on the table.
Counselor Panasic?
I was just thinking about one question. Why did the MD say no to you? What was their?
Because they're not in that. They said they couldn't, because if they did one, they'd have to do them all. And being we're in the town, and the town does all the others.
They do one, they'd have to do all of the town ones?
They do, the town does all the others.
Yeah, but they didn't want to get into it because it's in town limits,
That's right.
is that?
Yeah, and they said they don't do the MDs, so why would they do ours?
Do they cut the lawns in all of the MD cemeteries?
Just the town cuts the town cemeteries. And we were left out.
All right. Could you read the motion back, please?
Moved by Councilor Carey that council forward the Slavian Independent Cemetery request to maintain the cemetery lawn to the 2015 budget deliberations, and that council direct administration to investigate mowing the Slavian Independent Cemetery for the remainder of the 2014 year.
So will that come as a, item on the July 23rd meeting?
Or we can make our reports too.
All in favor? You may have to cut the lawn for another couple of weeks.
That's what.
We'll try and get this.
Thank you.
Councilor
I would
Panasic?
like to make another motion, and that would be to ask administration to bring forward a cost sharing of cutting the cemeteries to the intermunicipal planning group.
So you're
Counselor Long?
so then through the chair, you're looking at
saying I'd like to take it to the group to explore the possibilities of having them cost share this. For the same reasons that Deb was doing. And I talked a little bit with, one of our people that, was a caretaker, undertaker here, and they were saying that that's not uncommon to have a shared agreement and sharing costs on cutting some of it, so I think it would be something to investigate.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried? I think I'm gonna put that on to the CAO's report. I have a comment on grass cutting. All right, so the next item of business is the 50th Avenue road repair. Councillor Enter?
Make a motion that council forward a joint letter signed by the town of Prairie, mayor or deputy mayor, to the MD of Big Lakes Reed, to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, copy to the MLA Pro Calabasin, that the cost of $1.2 million to repair 50th Avenue be split 1/3 for the town of High Prairie, 1/3 for the MD of Big Lakes, and 1/3 for the government of Alberta.
That we've done all that.
No, we did it to the Minister of Transportation.
Oh, nice.
Now he's out of money. He's asking us to check the next one. So we'll just vote.
They'll have money come election time.
All right, so you understand what the difference is between this letter and the last letter. All in favor? That motion is carried. Next item of business is the Elks Campground. Councillor Hampton.
Make a motion that council forwards Elks' request to maintain and operate the Elks Campground to the 2015 budget deliberations.
All right, questions on this? Comments? Councillor Tanaka.
It doesn't say in their letter, it just says aging infrastructure. Do you know what the infrastructure they're talking about? Is it sewer?
Sewer and water, I believe, is out there.
Do they have power up there?
Yes. Councillor Carrier, I'll just see.
In talking, with one of the members of the Elks, there is busted water lines that they're not interested in repairing. There's different things that are happening. There hasn't been enough campers out there to equal the cost of maintaining it, so therefore that's why they wanna pull out. The cost of repairing all the water lines, they're not marked, they didn't have the trace wire along with them, so they could determine where the water lines are in the ground. It's just too costly.
So referring this to budget deliberations, will we receive a package with all of this type of information in it?
But what we do with the budget deliberation is to see what costs are involved for council to make a decision on how to go forward. So the cost elementary for investigating what needs to be done on the ground before we give that permission to.
Okay, so we will get a report on the whole, status of that campground. And probably we will then know the income from the Elks, what that income portion was.
We'll have to investigate everything.
And would we also be knowing what else we could use the campground for?
This is part of what you need to provide the options.
All right. Councillor Carrier?
I just asked the CEO, I'm having a hell of a time trying to hear you, and I'm just a couple of feet away, so I really need you to speak up.
I apologize, I'm a little exhausted, yeah. So part of the budget deliberation, we try to gather as much information as we can, so that council can make informed budgetary decisions when we get there. So we'll do some investigation on the Elks campground.
Councillor Panasic?
I'm curious who owns the campground, like is it the town that owns it and we've got a contract with the Elks to run it and maintain it?
And do we have a contract, Mr. Tomaco?
No, I think that's what the Elks have been doing, they've been taking care of it.
It's just been an
Yeah.
informal agreement that we'll run it,
Yes.
and they've done a wonderful
Good
job.
job,
When
yes.
you drive by, it's always nice to maintain.
Yes.
I think, Mr. Tomaco, there is a contract, I
Is
think you
there?
should look into it.
Okay, I will. agreement.
Can't believe that we haven't got a lease agreement with the
No,
Elks.
it could be a dollar lease agreement,
Yes?
I'm not too sure exactly what it is, could be a dollar lease agreement.
All right,
Actually,
Yes,
just
Councillor.
that, because the other thing is that maybe there's an opportunity to work with them where we do some of the infrastructure upgrading and they continue to maintain it. Because they do a good job, but, and I guess I'd also like to know, what are the usage of it? Is it worth maintaining a campground? Is it getting used enough? Or should we be looking at making it into something else? A dog park.
well, and indeed that's true. One reason probably that they want to give it up is that they are trying to generate more income from the RV park north of Prairie. And this one is, it's away from where that is, and they have to have different people looking after it. So I can see them probably just saying, no, we don't want it, take it completely. Day use maybe for the town. That'd be- All right, we have a motion then. If we have any other questions on it? All in favor? It's carried. All right, does anyone want a break? All right, then we will take a, till 8:30, we'll take a break.
I think what council needs to remember is that you're like the actors, you have to amplify it to the audience.